Hi everybody, I am here. This is actually the second time that I'm recording this video because the first time I did it, I recorded it on my phone and it was much higher, better quality than it is now. But then I realized that my phone is broken and I cannot connect I can't connect it to the computer in order to do anything with the video. I can't upload from my phone because it's a Windows phone and, well, you know, Google owns YouTube, so, they don't get along very well, apparently. I can't upload it from my phone. So, I'm re-recording this video, and I wanted to do a sort of preliminary product review of Reptilinks. If you don't know what Reptilinks are, I highly recommend checking them out if you own reptiles. I'll put a link down in the description. Basically, they are they're shaped like sausages, and they look like sausages, but they're not made of sausage meat. They are ground whole prey for reptiles. And basically, they have ones that are made of rabbit, they have ones that are made of quail, and they have ones that are made of venison. I believe they have chicken. They're also coming out with frogs soon. And those are for all different kinds of reptiles, not just for snakes. You can feed most of them to snakes. The venison I wouldn't recommend just because it's not something that you would typically feed a snake, but the chicken, the quail, and the rabbit you could feed to most snakes because those are, a type of prey that they would typically eat anyway. And I've never tried the venison with snakes, although I've heard that it's fine. I personally wouldn't do it. But you can feed the venison to, some people have alligators, some people have, like, meat-eating lizards. There's also a few that are made with, like, vegetables and, like, a vegetable mix for, like, bearded dragons and stuff like that. There's a vegetable meat cross also for whatever. Also bearded dragons, I guess, they also eat meat. So they have a nice variety of them, and they come in all different sizes. And I'll let you check most of that out. I've explained more than I would have anyway about it. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description for them. I kind of wanted to go through and kind of give a review of what I think of the Reptilinks so far. I've been using them for about 4 months now for my snakes, ever since I brought them out of brumation in January, and it is the end of April now, close to the end of April. And I just thought I just want to kind of give a general review of kind of the basic things that I see right off the bat that I do and don't like about them. Thing number one that I'm going to start with the cons and then go with the pros. Con number one, there are some links that are very small. There are mini and there are micro links. The mini and micro links they don't have the same kind of casing that the rest of the links have. They have kind of like a gelatin casing, whereas the bigger links have a it's not a natural casing, but it's non-toxic, biodegradable casing. The casing for the small links, though, is like it's like a jello. Like I said, it's a gelatin. It's just made of protein. And if you know what jello is made out of, it's just like a natural protein. You can boil down a horse hoof and what's left over is protein. I know that sounds really gross, but that's what it is. So that's kind of, it's very squishy, and I understand that maybe that's all that they could have used for something that small, but you cannot get it wet, or it just disintegrates. That's the first problem I have. I was thawing out everything in water, rodents and everything. I would thaw out in water, warm water. And then when I first tried to thaw out the links in water, they just completely fell apart. So you cannot get them wet. So then comes the problem of thawing them out without them drying out. Aside from, the casing not being able to get wet, you can't, with like baby snakes, especially corn snakes. I have mostly corn snakes and a few other like colubrid species, and I have some spotted pythons and boa constrictors, but mostly corn snakes, and most of what I produce is baby corn snakes. And with baby corn snakes, a lot of times you have to like tease feed them, and that requires prey that can kind of hold up to being used as, you know, tease feeding, and these don't. They fall apart. You know, it doesn't matter what you do with them, they just fall apart too easily in general. As far as the way, like I said, I'm trying to go through all the cons in my head before doing the pros. The casing for the big ones, I think, is too thick. It's kind of got the opposite problem. The casing for the small ones doesn't go all the way around the link. I mean, it goes around long ways. They're kind of like long and skinny, but the casing doesn't like come together at the ends like you would think. Like if you look at a sausage, you know, the casing comes together at the end. It doesn't do that with the small links, and so a lot of times the casing is kind of sliding off of the meat, and it doesn't really help that much. The casing for the big links, I think, is a little too thick for some corn snakes. I got some snakes that eat them all day long and they're fine, and then I got some snakes that they just don't do very well with the thick casing. I have to like poke a hole in the casing and stuff, just because the casing's a little thick. But generally speaking, the casing for the big ones are fine, and I actually like the way that they're made. They're nice and like thick. I mean, they don't, not that they're thick, but they hold together really well, as opposed to the small ones that fall apart. As far as the sizing goes for everything, gram-wise, I think it's fine. They have different gram sizes. There's obviously the mini, the micro, and then they have like a 20 gram, like a 50 gram, an 80 gram, or something. You know, I mean, like they have different sizes that are supposed to kind of more or less represent the sizes of actual prey that you would, you know, buy. You know, like a mini link or a micro link would be the size of a pinky mouse, and a mini link would be the size of like a fuzzy mouse. Then when you're getting up into like the 20 gram ones, that's like the size of a hopper mouse or a pinky rat, you know, that kind of thing. And so they kind of try to mimic that size-wise. Gram-wise, I think that they're fine, but like weight-wise, I think they're fine. But as far as like how bulky they are, I mean, if you see an adult mouse, let's say they're about that big around, and I don't know if you can really tell, but let's just say that they're that big around. Well, if you have a link that's that big around versus a mouse that's that big around, the mouse can get crushed and squeezed out, you know, squeezed to be thinner as the snake swallows it. But the link can't. And so when the snakes, especially some of my snakes, have tried to eat these, they don't like it. They don't like to try to get it down, and then they can't squish it. And because they can't squish it, sometimes they end up just spitting it back out. They'll get it like part of the way down their throat, and then since they can't squish it, they just spit it back out. It's not a regurg necessarily, because it didn't hit their stomach and then sit there and then spit through back up. It just, they kind of get it in their throat and realize that it's not acting like food, and then they spit it back out. So I would recommend, in general, if anybody who cares is watching this, or anybody who can do anything about it is watching it, to maybe find a way for like the 50 gram links to be, you know, smaller around and longer. The 20, I think it's 20 to 25 gram or whatever links, are a really good size around, and I think that it would be a really good idea to maybe just like double a 25, like a 20 gram link or a 25 gram link length, because they're about that long usually, and if you just like keep it in the same size of casing around and then just make it longer, then I think that'd be better than having something that's bigger around that the snake can't do anything. You know, they can't hardly eat it. I think something like that needs to happen. Not that, you know, if anybody's watching this, I don't know if anybody's watching this that can do anything about it, but that's kind of one issue that I see. Some pros to them, they they do have more calories per gram weight. As far as the fat content, I'm not positive. A lot of people have asked me about the fat content. I don't really know. However, they do have more calories in them, which for baby snakes that you're trying to grow out of the little tiny baby stage, it's really great, because when they're little like that and they're fragile and you can't, you know, it seems like you can't get enough food into them. It's really important that they absorb as much of the calorie content as possible, as they possibly can. And these links allow for that. They help that process immensely, as well as females that are just getting ready to lay eggs or had just laid eggs, getting them to bounce back, so you can eventually put them down for brumation without worrying about their weight. It's really great for that. I'm actually using it. I'm using links on a few pregnant females right now to see how well they do, see how, if the egg quality is any better, anything like that. And I'll probably make another video explaining that once I kind of figure it out. I've been using them on my yearlings, yearlings that I bought, not yearlings that I hatched. A few yearlings that I hatched, but regularly on some yearlings that I had bought. And the people who I got these yearlings from were just maintenance feeding them, which means just basically feeding them to keep them alive, not to actually try to grow them and make them healthy. They were, yearlings that looked like 6-month-olds, like they were just so tiny compared to what they should be. So I started feeding them links, and they have all gained an amazing amount of weight. They're actually starting to look like yearlings now. They're actually almost back up to where they should be, at least in my opinion, where a yearling should be. They're still too small, but they're bigger than they were. They still finally look close to what they're supposed to look like at a year old. The ones, some of the yearlings that refuse to eat the links, that are still eating mice and, like pinky rats, they are not near as big still as they should be, in my opinion. So I think that the links are helping as far as the growth of the babies, and I know that they're helping with some females that laid eggs. I've been feeding links to 3 females that already laid eggs, and they're immediately, they're already back up to their pre-breeding weight, and it's been less than a month. And it depends on the female and how well her feeding response is anyway. Some females bounce back really fast, some females don't. Some females take months to get back to their pre-breeding weight, and some females only take a couple weeks. Some females, they lay eggs and they're just they back to their pre-breeding weight after they lay eggs. Most females aren't that way, but the 3 females that I have tried after, post egg laying, they all bounce back really quick, and that was really nice. There are a few females that won't eat them, of course, but you're going to get that with anything. That's another con that I want to discuss, I guess, is it is so hard to get the snakes to eat them sometimes. Now, tegus and bearded dragons and other things like that, they're going to be a little bit different, I think, than snakes. But snakes who their entire life have only eaten mice or only eaten rats or whatever, trying to switch them over to a very different meal is difficult, especially when the meal isn't made of exactly what they're used to. Just because they're made of rabbit, which is rodent, doesn't mean that the snakes are used to the smell of rabbit. Just because they're made of quail, which is bird, does not mean that they're used to the smell of quail, even if they're used to eating chickens, which, yes, you can feed baby chicks to corn snakes. And so it's been incredibly difficult to actually get some snakes started on the links. And that's kind of the biggest issue that I see. I've had to scent a lot of them. You wouldn't believe the lengths that I have gone to get these snakes to eat these rodents. It's pretty crazy. Or not these rodents, these lynx. But once they do eat them, it's pretty smooth sailing after that. Once you can get snakes that'll eat them, they do pretty well. My African house snakes absolutely love them, and they do great on them. I have a few corn snakes that do great on them. My spider pythons love them. The boas, I haven't really tried them with the boas yet, because the boas are so big, and there really aren't any lynx that are that big, so they've just been eating what they always ate. which is fine with me. Some other pros, I really like the fact that they are actually like whole prey, ground whole prey. And a lot of people are wondering, why does that matter? Why don't you just go buy them? You know, go buy rodents, since that's what they're used to anyway. You know, why go through the trouble? Well, I did mention that they have more calories per gram weight, which is true. And part of that is because the people who make them, they take out all the poop. And I don't know if you have ever dissected a rodent to see how much of their body weight is actually poop, but it's usually, at least in rodents, it's anywhere between 1/3 to 1/2 of their body weight. And when the majority of that poop is removed, you end up with more meat per gram weight, almost twice as much. And a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, the poop's got to be like good for the snakes or whatever. For those of you who do think that, not all the poo is removed, but the majority of it is, because, I mean, really, the poop is what the rodent has already taken all the nutritional value out of and is getting ready to expel. And the snake has to spend more of its own, like, calories in its body, like energy in its own body to digest that poop. And it spends more calories, more of its own, like, energy than it gets back from the poop. So it's kind of like if you were to eat celery. It takes more energy for your body to digest the celery than it actually gets back from the celery. And that's how rodent poop is for snakes. It takes more calories to burn, to digest the poop and to get it out of the snake's body than the snake actually gets out of it. So that by itself is a good reason, you know, is one thing that the lynx are good for. They have more nutritional value, and it also takes less calories for the snake's body to digest the food just by itself. Now, if you think about the fact that the food in the casing is already ground up, it takes a lot more of the snake's personal energy to digest a whole rodent than it takes for it to digest something that's already ground up. And so not only does it have more nutrition in it, but it also doesn't take away as much from the snake to digest it. So the snake can keep the energy it had before, as well as gain more energy from the link itself. So it really, in general, you know, in theory, it has multiple, you know, benefits, exponential benefits, if you can get the snakes to eat it. That's kind of the thing. But not just snakes, any other reptile as well, that's a meat eater. And even, obviously, like I said, there's vegetable ones as well. I don't know if I think there might be a fruit mix one, I'm not really sure. Like I said, the link will be in the description below. So overall, using them for the past few months, I've been using them with my adults and with some of my babies and with my yearlings and with some of my subadults. My subadults are doing really well. I actually had a subadult female that I thought you know, not this time last year, but I'm going to say 6 months ago. This time 6 months ago, I thought there was no way that she was going to be able to breed this year. Then I started her on lynx, and like I said, within 6 months, she went from being like 250, less than 250, to being over 300 grams. And she's just super healthy. She just loves the lynx. She'll eat. She's great, and I already bred her, and she'll hopefully be giving me eggs soon. She's one of my link-only females now. I have some link-only males as well. I'm not sure if the lynx will do anything as far as quality of sperm or amount of sperm from the male. I doubt it. But I guess that's something to like kind of look forward to, you know, maybe try later eventually. Right now my main goal is to see how it affects babies that eat the lynx regularly versus babies that only eat pinkies. Currently I have been feeding lynx/pinkies to the babies that I have right now for a little over a month. It's going to be about a month and a half since I hatched my first clutch of 2016. And of the the half that have been on pinkies only have gained on average, I'm going to say 15% of their original body weight. So, for example, for those of you who don't quite get what I mean, let's say something weighed 100 grams to start out with, which they don't, but I'm just saying as an example. If they weighed 100 grams to start out with, they now weigh 115 grams, because 15 is, 15% of 100, so, you get it. The link eaters have probably gained close to 30% more of their original body weight. And that's average. Some of them have gained more than that. But at the same time, I also have a very small sample size. A lot of people mentioned that it could just be coincidence, which is also possible. And I have found, just in general, snakes that eat anything are going to gain weight faster than snakes that don't. And I don't really like to force feed, so I'm also kind of letting nature take its course in that area. Just because a snake has been, offered a pinky or a link doesn't necessarily mean that it's eaten it. Just because I've offered 5 meals doesn't mean it's accepted all 5 meals. So, like I said, it could be coincidence. It could be results. I don't know. But I'm going to see what the results are after a couple of months of feeding the babies and see how well they grow compared to the pinky eaters, the mouse eaters. And I'm also going to do the same with pregnant females, see how the eggs compare, if there's better fertility or if the fertility is affected at all. See how the shells, if the shells are thicker or if they're, nicer or whatever than the females that don't, that didn't eat links. I'm not really sure if at all the links would affect the babies in the eggs that would have been laid. Probably not. I can't see why they would, unless there's more nutrition in the yolk or something because of the mother was eating it. I'm not really sure. I don't know how all that would work, but regardless, I'm going to keep track of everything I can. I've been keeping weights of all the babies before they eat every time I feed them, so you can get an idea of like how much every one of them weighs. I've been keeping track of sheds. Surprisingly, at a month old, a month and a half old, these babies have already gone through their second shed cycle, which is actually the quickest I've ever had babies go through their second shed cycle. So I guess that's going to be it for now. Sorry this video went 22 minutes. It was about this long before too, and I really thought that I was going to try to make it shorter, but sorry. I'm going to put links in the description below. Like I said, one to reptilinks.com and then the other to my Facebook page, which is where you can find anything that's for sale. I update my Facebook page before I update anything else, as far as like the females that are laying or eggs that, are hatching or babies for sale or whatever else. Right now I don't have much for sale because I've only had 1 clutch hatch so far this year. I have another like 5 clutches in the incubator, but they're not, obviously, they haven't hatched yet, so they're not for sale yet. I'll probably make another video concerning what I'm, going to be getting this year, but that's a whole other thing. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will talk to you next time.